Okay, good evening. We are on now with Judge Phoebee R. Francois. She is a county court judge in Group 27 right here in Broward County. Good evening, Judge Francois. How are you this evening?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me to interview me. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk to the people. So thank you so much.
You are very welcome, and thank you for stopping by the Adams Brothers Podcast. Okay, so let's jump right on in and just introduce yourself and tell us about your education and how you became a county court judge in Group 27.
Okay. Well, again, my name is Judge Phoebee Rebecca Francois. I grew up in Plainfield, New Jersey. I came down here. I went to undergraduate at Temple University in Philadelphia. I actually came down to South Florida for law school, and I attended St. Thomas University in Miami. And then I ended up staying down here, and I came down in 1991. I graduated from law school in 1994. And my first job at a law school was with the Seminole County State Attorney's Office. And then I came back down to South Florida and worked with the Broward County Public Defender's Office. And that was for a total of 10 years. So that's a little bit about my beginning.
Okay.
In 2004, I went into private practice. I was in private practice for 5 years, where I owned my own law firm, and I practiced and I did cases such as criminal, civil, family. I did employment law, and I did some administrative law, and I also did immigration. In 2009, I was appointed by the chief judge to serve as a general magistrate and hearing officer. And I did that for almost 9 years. In 2017, while I was a magistrate, I was appointed to be the supervisor for all of the magistrates and hearing officers in Broward County. And in 2018, in June of 2018, I was appointed by the governor to serve as a county court judge, and that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. I am currently assigned to the West Plantation Courthouse, which is on Pine Island Boulevard, Pine Island Road, and I preside over condo foreclosures, landlord-tenant evictions, small claims, civil, criminal, as well as traffic infractions. And I believe that everybody should have their day in court. They should be treated with dignity and fairness, as well as compassion, and that everybody should be given the opportunity to be heard. And that's one of the reasons why I let everybody speak, because I think that's important, because I think people will feel as if they had their case heard in court when they felt like they actually got to say everything that they wanted to say to the court. So that's why that's important to me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And you have a very impressive resume there. And we're glad to have you here. So I'm going to go right on into my first question for you, Judge Francois. What are your views on the need for more diversity on the bench and the manner in which the courts treat members of different races, particularly Black people?
Well, I think it's important that we have qualified and experienced judges, so that the public can trust the system. Because I think that when you go to court and you don't see anyone that looks like you tend to not trust that you're going to get a fair shake. So I think that diversity is important, because we should have a diverse bench because we have a diverse community. So the bench should reflect the community. Every judge, no matter what diverse background that you come from, should treat the people that appear before them, their litigants, with dignity, respect, fairness. I don't think that matters whether or not you're Black, white, red, brown, or whatever you may be. Everybody should be treated equally, and everybody should be treated fairly. And I think that to be able to understand other cultures and to be able to connect with the community is important. And that's one of the reasons why I give back to the community. I interact with the community and I'm part of the community because I want to know my community so that when they appear before me, I'm sensitive to the community's needs.
And that's good because I've been down in front of a judge at the courthouse before, and it's not a good feeling being in front of a judge, and it's sort of intimidating to a lot of people. So it's good that you make them feel comfortable, and and it's not an easy feeling being down in front of a judge.
Right. A lot of people have come to court. That's their very first time coming to court. My goal is for them they may not remember what happened, but they remember the experience. They remember how they felt. They felt as if the judge was patient and listened to them versus rushing them through the case just to get it over with. I think all of that is important. The experience is what's important. So that someone who has to go back to court, they're not as intimidated the second time around because they felt as if, well, it wasn't so bad the first time. I don't mind going back to court if I have to.
Wayne?
Okay, Judge. Do you believe the makeup of juries adequately and fairly reflect society at large in Broward County?
Well, not always, but the goal is to try to pick a jury that does reflect society at large. Unfortunately, you have some lawyers who will try to strike the jurors that, and I'm going to just give an example. A lawyer may try to strike a Black juror because there's a Black defendant and they may be the prosecutor, and they want just the opposite because people tend to think that if you're a Black person, you're going to acquit a Black defendant, which is not true. But you have a lot of times that people think that way, so they try to get rid of those minority jurors. And one of the ways that the law protects against that and is if there's a challenge, we require that the other side gives a race-neutral reason as to why they're getting rid of this Black juror, for example. So they have to tell us, I'm not getting rid of them because they're Black, I'm getting rid of them because of something they said. So that's important. Otherwise, we may have a problem.
Okay, and I got one follow-up question too with that. What are the pros and cons of using driver license in relation to the old voters registration?
The pros are cons. Well, the pro is that more people have an opportunity to be able to be called and to serve if you're using the driver's license versus the voter registration. In the past, what they did when they used the voter registration, if you're not registered to vote, you'll never be called as a juror. Everybody is, almost everybody has a driver's license. So you have the likelihood of someone, like you and me, just a regular person out there being called for a jury is more likely if they're doing it via the driver's license. The negative about that is that if you are a convicted felon, or if you are not a United States citizen, you're not really allowed to serve on a jury, and the driver's license way doesn't, you can't really separate those out. So the attorneys have to ask those questions, and sometimes we have to let people go because they're not eligible to serve on a jury. But I still think it's a better way of doing it because you have a larger a larger venire, a larger group that you can pick from.
Okay, thank you. Daryl?
Judge Francois, if you observed a party in your courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared or ineffective lawyer, how would you handle that situation?
That's a delicate situation. The problem is that we really can't take sides. We can't say that we're gonna go for this side versus that side. But what I would do in that situation is I would, if it's before a jury, I would excuse the jury and I would call the parties sidebar, and I would have a discussion with them in reference to, what's the problem? Do they need some extra time, or what is the issue? Why is it that we're having this problem? And give them an opportunity to perhaps get another attorney to sit second chair with them, especially if it's a criminal case. Because in a criminal case and a civil case, they're very different. I think I would do less in a civil case, because we're talking about money, versus a criminal case where we're talking about someone's due process rights and liberty, possibly even death. We may be talking about a death penalty case. So if there's an ineffective assistance of counsel, that case is more likely to come back on appeal. So, I may give that attorney a continuance if they need a continuance, or I may give that attorney an opportunity to get co-counsel, somebody else to come up, maybe more familiar with the issues, or more, have more experience doing that type of criminal work. So it is very sensitive, though, because we definitely don't want to appear to be taking sides.
Yeah, I asked you that question because I had an attorney represent me once before, and he came to court late. They had already called my case, and he came running down the hallway. He was unprepared for court, and he was trying to, crunch some numbers out in the hallway, and he was unprepared for court. So that's the reason why I asked you that question. How would you handle that?
Well, one of the things that I would suggest that people do, if you think that your attorney may not be prepared, or your attorney may not be taking the case seriously, you have to bring it up to the judge, because sometimes it's very hard for the judge to then just take it up on their own to say, oh, I don't think this person is being effective. That, that person, that might be their strategy. That might be their way of winning the case. Who knows why that's happening. But if the defendant tells the judge, Your Honor, I'm concerned because I don't think this attorney is representing me well, then we can address it. We can have a hearing regarding it. And then I think that it could be resolved that way.
Thank you. Wayne?
Okay, Judge. What criteria would you use for deciding whether to impose or affirm a sentence outside of standard sentencing guidelines?
Well, if the sentence is outside of the guidelines, there would have to be some type of reason or law that allowed the judge to go outside of those guidelines. If there is a law that allows the judge to go outside of the guidelines, then the defendant would have to meet the criteria for whatever that law is that goes outside of the guidelines. For example, when I was practicing as a public defender, someone who was charged with a possession of cocaine charge that scored under the guidelines, that scored mandatory prison, could get a reduced sentence, could get probation and a drug program if they met that criteria. And that's pursuant to statute. So if there's a statute that allows the judge to have that discretion to reduce the charge, or even to increase the charge, that's what we have to look at in order to affirm or not affirm what that judge did, to see whether or not that judge did the right thing. The judge has to follow the law. So you can't just decide that I'm going to go outside of the guidelines and give someone, if the guideline says that the person can only get 5 years, you can't give them 10, because right. The guideline doesn't allow that. And then that's a violation of the law.
Yeah, and it'll probably get overturned on appeal.
Absolutely.
Okay, Daryl?
Please describe your firsthand experience, if any, dealing with people who are different from you socially, economically, or politically.
Well, I deal with people who are different from me every day. When I, on a regular basis, whether it's politically, socially, economically, in all regards, because I deal with people all the time. I called my courtroom the People's Court because I I'm able to deal with the public directly. And I have all types of people that appear before me. I'm also very much involved with the community. So I sit on the board of Community Action, Broward County Community Action Agency. I sit on the board of Broward Meals on Wheels, where I deal with seniors. I mentor young people, where I deal with kids starting at elementary school, going all the way up to law school. So I deal with so many different types of people. I also grant wishes for chronically ill individuals, and that ranges from people who have absolutely nothing to people who may be who may have all of the luxuries in the world. So it's important to be able to have that experience and deal with so many different types of people. Every case that I have, I deal with a different personality. So it's hard to give you one example because it's almost every situation that I deal with.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Wayne.
Okay, Judge. What do you believe are some of the causes of the high rate of minority being incarcerated?
There's been a lot of studies that talk about minority incarceration. So I think that when you say that, what are the causes?
Yes.
Some of the causes are drug addiction. Sometimes it's poverty. Sometimes it's the neighborhood that you're in. And you may have some young people who feel like they have to defend themselves or do certain things because they have to, because there's so much violence in their community. But I think that the drugs is probably one of the main causes of such a high number of incarceration. And of course, there's also the sentencing discretion. You have, a lot of people being incarcerated through the court system.
Yes. And what about, do you think Blacks are more overcharged than any other race?
You're asking me my opinion as to whether or not Blacks are more overcharged?
Yes, according to the legal system, are they more overcharged than any other ethnic group?
There has been some studies that have indicated that, without giving my own personal opinion, but there has been some studies that
Right.
has indicated that Blacks, are incarcerated much more often than other races.
Okay. And one other question too. Have you ever had to be disciplined by the Bar Association?
I have never been disciplined by the Bar Association. I have never been disciplined by the Judicial Qualifications Committee.
That's good. Okay, Daryl.
When you first became a judge, what judge mentored you the most, and what judge did you look up to when you first became a judge?
I have to say that I was very lucky because I had several judges that reached out to me and that mentored me. I would say that Judge Ilona Holmes was one of those judges, and I've known her for many years, and she's always been a mentor to me. And one of the things that we're also assigned a mentor. When you first become a judge, you're assigned a mentor. And my mentor, the person that I was assigned was Judge Lou Schiff. And he's at the Deerfield North Satellite Courthouse, and he was also very helpful. But I have to say that there a lot of the judges were very, very helpful. In my courthouse, Judge Olga Levine was very helpful. So we're like a family. The judges look out for each other. And I was lucky to say that I had a lot of judges looking out for me.
Yes, Ilona Holmes, she's from Deerfield Beach, and she presided over our Sister Angela Savage's murder case back in July of 2015. So we're very familiar with Judge Holmes, and she's retired, living a good life right now.
Lucky her, right?
Lucky her, yes. Wayne?
Okay.
And I can tell you, I just want to say one thing. I can still reach out to Judge Holmes and get advice from her. So she's still very much in it, even though she's
Well,
retired.
that's good to hear.
Yeah, she comes to our church sometimes and speaks, and she does a real good job. She's a real good speaker. We enjoy her coming to our church at Greater Bethel AME in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Okay, Judge, has there ever been a case that had you up late at night wondering whether you could have handled it differently?
There's been a few cases that I've thought that maybe I could have handled differently. That's always going to happen, because after you finish, you deal with the case, you go home, you start thinking about it, you start rethinking about it, and you start thinking, well, I could have said this or I could have done that. And I think that's just human nature, because we want to be perfect, and we want to make sure that we always make the right decision. So you start rethinking some of the things that you've done. But then I go back and I research and I look at everything again and I say, no, I do think I made the right decision. So I think it is human nature to take stuff home, to take your work home with you and to think about it. I try not to do that, but it's very difficult not to.
Yes. Okay, Daryl.
I don't have another question for her unless you have another one for her.
Yes, I do. Judge, what has been your greatest accomplishment in your legal career and in your personal life?
I have to say my greatest accomplishment has been my appointment as a judge, as a county court judge. Let me tell you, my road to the bench was not easy. I applied 15 times before I actually was appointed by Governor Rick Scott. So it was one of those situations where I kept trying, even though they kept saying no. I kept learning from, my mistakes and doing better the next time. Or they would say, oh yeah, we really liked you, but we had to give it this other person. So I didn't give up, and I kept going and I kept going until they actually said yes. Maybe he got tired of seeing my name come, on his desk. I don't know why he appointed me, but the bottom line is that I wasn't gonna take no for an answer. So that I would say that was my biggest accomplishment, because there were so many times that I felt like saying, well, you know what, forget about it, but I didn't. So that was a huge accomplishment for me.
Okay. And during this pandemic, what are some of the changes you had to make inside the courtroom?
Well, one of the things that we have done is we've gone virtual. I'm not the most computer savvy person, and I had to learn how to become more computer savvy. We do all of our hearings via Zoom. Arraignments, criminal, civil, everything is on Zoom. And it was a learning process, but I think we're getting the handle of it right now. So it's actually working well.
Okay, and what are 3 of the biggest challenges facing the justice system in Broward County in 2020?
Lack of funding. I would say access to the courts. And I think that just getting through the technology.
Okay. That is it for me as far as questions.
Okay, Judge Francois, in your closing statement, why should the voters support you rather than your opponent for county court judge in Group 27?
The voters should support me for county court judge Group 27 because I am the most qualified for this position. I have been in a quasi-judicial position for over 12 years. I was a general magistrate and hearing officer for almost 10 years, and I've been a judge now for over 2 years. I have heard thousands and thousands of cases in Broward County. I have I have worked in the community. I am part of this community. I mentor young people, and I teach them how to become mentors when they have achieved their goals. I bring the kids into the courthouse, and I teach them, how to deal with the police. I make them watch the criminal trials, so that they can understand how a trial is conducted. I even test them and make them help me write the final judgments and see what they have to say and how they would rule on a particular case, so that they can walk out with getting a very good experience and getting the full understanding of what this court system is about. I think it's important to teach our children, because if we don't, they're going to make bad decisions, and you want them to make good decisions so that they can become our future. I'm part of this community. I have been for many years, and I absolutely have been doing a great job as a judge, and I want to continue to serve our people. It's important for us to have diversity on the bench, and I'm asking for everyone to support me and to keep me in this position.
Well said. The Honorable.
I just want to add that the early absentee voting has already started. Please make sure that you send in your ballots or vote early. Early voting starts on August 8th through the 16th, and the election day is on August 18th. So whichever you choose, whichever date you decide that you want to vote, please make sure that you vote. That's the important thing, because if you don't vote, you don't have a voice.
Absolutely. The Honorable Phoebee R. Francois. She's running for County Court Judge in Group 27. Thank you so very much for stopping by the Adams Brothers Podcast, and you are welcome to come back and come on our show anytime we want. We'd like to see you here, not in the courtroom. We don't want to see you down there. But thank you so very much for stopping by and taking time out of your busy schedule, and we really appreciate you stopping by. Good luck to you.
For having me. Thank you so much.
And wish you much success.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.